Don't fall for these myths. The truth about adjustable dumbbells. She stood in her living room at 5 in the morning, staring at the corner where her adjustable dumbbells sat collecting dust. 3 months ago, she'd been so sure they were the answer. Now she wasn't even sure they worked the way everyone promised. Like most of us, she'd believed the online gurus, the sponsored posts, the confident voices insisting adjustable dumbbells were either a miracle tool or complete garbage. But standing there in the half-light, hands already sore from yesterday's session, she realized she didn't actually know what was true anymore. What she wanted wasn't complicated. She wanted to feel strong without needing an entire gym. She wanted equipment that didn't make her feel like she'd made the wrong choice every time she picked it up. But somewhere between the equipment reviews and the conflicting opinions, the truth had gotten buried. Part of her wondered if she'd fallen for the same myths everyone else believed. The myths that made people either worship adjustable dumbbells like they were magic or dismiss them like they were toys. She was tired of guessing. She wanted to know what was real. So she started digging. Not through more sponsored content or surface-level hot takes, but into what actually happens when you train with these tools over time. What she found wasn't what she expected. The first myth hit her hard because she'd believed it completely. Everyone said adjustable dumbbells were just as good as traditional ones, no difference whatsoever. That felt comforting at first, like she hadn't compromised by choosing them. But the truth was more nuanced. Adjustable dumbbells are effective, incredibly effective even, but they're not identical to fixed-weight dumbbells. The weight distribution can shift slightly depending on the mechanism. The grip diameter changes as you add plates or adjust settings. The balance point isn't always centered the same way. And pretending there's no difference at all had kept her from learning how to use them properly. She'd been trying to replicate every movement exactly as if she were holding traditional dumbbells, and that subtle mismatch had been causing frustration she couldn't name. Then came the second myth, and this one made her laugh out loud when she realized how backwards it was. People kept saying adjustable dumbbells were only for beginners, that serious lifters needed real weights. She'd internalized that message without questioning it. But when she looked at the science, when she talked to trainers who'd worked with athletes for decades, the story flipped. Adjustable dumbbells allow for progressive overload in precise increments. You can increase by 2 pounds instead of jumping 5 or 10. That level of control is exactly what advanced lifters need to break through plateaus. The myth existed because people confused serious training with heavy, clunky equipment, as if the iron itself contained some magic that made you stronger. Muscle doesn't know if you're holding a $70 dumbbell or a $700 one. It only knows tension, time under load, and progressive challenge. She thought about all the months she'd hesitated to push herself harder because she'd believed she was training with beginner equipment. How much progress had that cost her? There was still one thing she couldn't explain, though. The myth about durability. She'd read 100 comments claiming adjustable dumbbells break within months, that the mechanisms fail, that you're just throwing money away. Yet hers were still working perfectly after 3 months of near-daily use. So she dug deeper. What she found was that the durability myth came from 2 places. Cheap knockoffs that flooded the market during the pandemic, and user error that people blamed on the equipment. Quality adjustable dumbbells from reputable manufacturers, ones with metal components and solid locking mechanisms, can last decades. But if you drop them from shoulder height repeatedly, if you never maintain the adjustment mechanism, if you store them in a damp garage where rust takes over, of course they'll fail. That's not a flaw in the design, that's physics and neglect meeting each other. She realized she'd been gentler with her equipment than she needed to be, treating them like they were fragile, when they were actually built to handle serious work. That overprotection had limited her training intensity without her even realizing it. But what surprised her most wasn't the myths themselves. It was discovering how these misconceptions had quietly shaped her entire approach to training. She'd been holding back, second-guessing, compensating for problems that didn't actually exist. The fourth myth was subtler but maybe the most damaging. The idea that adjustable dumbbells slow down your workout so much that they kill your training efficiency. She'd felt that anxiety every time she paused to change the weight, wondering if she was ruining her session by breaking the flow. Researchers who've studied training protocols found something interesting. Yes, adjusting weight takes more time than grabbing a different fixed dumbbell from a rack. About 15 to 30 seconds depending on the mechanism. But for home training, where you don't have a full rack of dumbbells waiting, that comparison doesn't even apply. The real question is whether those extra seconds matter enough to impact your results. And unless you're doing high-intensity interval circuits where every second of rest affects your heart rate zone, they don't. For strength training, for hypertrophy, for most functional fitness work, an extra 20 seconds between sets is completely irrelevant. What actually kills workout efficiency is decision fatigue, lack of structure, scrolling your phone between sets, and training without clear progression. The adjustment mechanism isn't even in the top 10 factors that determine whether your workout is effective. She thought about all the times she'd rushed through weight changes, feeling guilty about the time, when she should have been focusing on form and intention. The myth had created stress where none needed to exist. Somewhere between the third week and the second month, something shifted. She stopped thinking about her dumbbells as beginner equipment or compromised tools. They became just equipment, neutral, effective when used well, useless when misunderstood. That mental shift changed everything. She started programming her workouts around what adjustable dumbbells do best: precise progression, unilateral training, accommodating space constraints, and allowing for drop sets without needing 3 different pairs of weights. The fifth myth almost made her angry when she uncovered it, because it had cost her so much confidence. People claimed you can't build serious muscle with adjustable dumbbells because they don't go heavy enough. She'd accepted that limitation without checking if it was even true. Most quality adjustable dumbbells now go up to 50, 75, even 90 pounds per hand. That's enough resistance for the vast majority of pressing, rowing, and compound movements for most people, including advanced lifters. And for leg training, unilateral work with those loads creates more than enough stimulus for growth. The myth persisted because people compared their adjustable dumbbell options to the heaviest fixed dumbbells in commercial gyms, which can go up to 200 pounds. But almost no one actually needs that much weight for dumbbell work. If you're pressing 100-pound dumbbells, you're probably already training in a powerlifting gym with specialized equipment. For everyone else, for the 98% of people training at home or in standard gyms, adjustable dumbbells provide more than enough resistance. The limiting factor is never the equipment. It's consistency, programming, nutrition, and recovery. She started lifting heavier than she'd ever attempted before, not because the dumbbells changed, but because the mental barrier dissolved. The weights she'd thought were only for serious lifters had been sitting in her hands the whole time. There was a morning, maybe 6 weeks in, when she caught herself smiling mid-set. Not because the workout was easy, but because she finally felt like she understood what she was doing. The confusion had lifted, the second guessing had quieted. What surprised me most wasn't just how adjustable dumbbells improved my experience with strength training at home, but how everything started to feel different once I switched to the right method. I wasn't expecting such a clear change, and honestly, I tested it more than a few times before I figured out what really worked. This isn't a promotion, just sharing real results that made a noticeable difference for me. I'll leave the link below if you want to explore what I mean. The final myth she confronted was the one about versatility. People either claimed adjustable dumbbells could replace an entire home gym, or that they were so limited you might as well not bother. Both extremes were wrong. Adjustable dumbbells are incredibly versatile, but they're not magic. You can train every major muscle group effectively with just dumbbells. Pressing, rowing, squatting, lunging, hinging, carrying. The fundamental movement patterns that build strength and muscle are all accessible. But they won't replace a barbell for heavy compound lifts if that's your training focus. They won't replicate the specific stimulus of cables or machines. They're not ideal for certain Olympic lifting variations or maximum strength work in the lower body. Understanding what they are and what they aren't had been the key all along. She'd been frustrated because she expected them to do everything, then disappointed when they had limitations. But every tool has limitations. Even a full commercial gym has equipment gaps depending on your goals. When she stopped asking her adjustable dumbbells to be something they weren't, and started maximizing what they actually offered, her training finally clicked. The frustration dissolved. The progress accelerated. She thought about how much time she'd wasted believing things that weren't true, how those myths had created invisible ceilings in her mind that had nothing to do with her actual potential. The equipment hadn't been holding her back. The misconceptions had. By the third month, her living room felt different, not because anything physical had changed, but because the space now represented clarity instead of confusion. Those dumbbells in the corner weren't collecting dust anymore. They were tools she understood, respected, and used effectively. Sometimes we only understand strength when it's tested, not just physical strength, but the strength to question what everyone else accepts as obvious truth, to dig past the surface opinions and find what actually works. When she looked in the mirror again, it wasn't her reflection that had changed, it was what she believed about herself. She wasn't someone limited by beginner equipment or compromise choices. She was someone who'd learned to see through the noise and train with intention. The myths about adjustable dumbbells weren't just about equipment. They were about all the ways we let other people's confusion become our own doubt. All the times we assume limitations exist, because everyone says they do without ever testing them ourselves. She realized the best training tool isn't necessarily the most expensive one, or the one with the most hype, or the one that looks most impressive. It's the one you understand completely and use consistently. Everything else is just decoration. Tell us what part of this story resonated most and where you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.